according to a first-of-its-kind study by the Anti-Defamation League and the advocacy group GLAAD. Between June of 2022 and April of 2023, there were 356 targeted assaults, acts of harassment, and/or vandalism against the LGBTQ community in the U.S., including the deadly attack at a Colorado bar. Drag events and artists were targeted most, followed by educators and medical professionals. Nearly half of all incidents were linked to extremist groups.
Researchers collecting information to go into next year's report say the situation is getting worse.
In the heart of Tempe, pride flags can be seen waving all over. But for the one right in front of City Hall, officials say someone took it down and burned it.
A fire scene and potential hate crime investigation outside a Manhattan restaurant this morning.
That's where police say someone intentionally set fire to a pride flag hanging above the front entrance.
Nationwide, there have been more than 520 anti-LGBTQ plus bills proposed just this year. That's according to the Human Rights Campaign.
This is sort of a bit of a snapshot of all the states that have passed anti-LGBTQ laws.
Call out these pieces of legislation for what they are, which is harmful.
The American Academy of Pediatrics published a study finding transgender teens who were given puberty blockers experienced superior mental health outcomes compared to those who wanted the medication but didn't receive it. And a 2022 study concluded transgender and non-binary youth with access to gender-affirming care had 60% lower odds of moderate or severe depression.
The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and over a dozen other well-renowned medical organizations support the use of gender-affirming care for minors.
Stats show the chances of people who identify as LGBTQ becoming unhoused far outweigh the same chances for someone outside that community. And those circumstances can be devastating, especially for the youngest among them. Our next guest knows that firsthand, but he's now doing great thanks to an organization here in New York City. Let's welcome Maddox and the executive director of the Ali Forney Center, Alex. So, what was life before? What was it like before the center?
So I always have to think back to when I was a young person. Growing up, I felt differently internally than I did externally, right? Externally, I was socialized as female, but I always felt masculine internally. So obviously that then led to me becoming a very depressed adult. I dropped out of high school because I couldn't even imagine myself in the future. I couldn't imagine anything. It got to the point where I was living with my mom, but I was out all night. I would come home when my mom wasn't home. So I was out all night, home all day, and then back out at night because I didn't feel comfortable at home.
In the United States, LGBTQ plus youth are 8 times more likely to become homeless than their non-LGBTQ plus counterparts. Once homeless, LGBTQ plus youth face greater detriments on our streets. In fact, LGBTQ plus youth are 8 times more likely to experience violence on the streets, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation. Since 2016, the attacks on the LGBTQ plus community, and specifically on queer youth, has increased exponentially. AFC has experienced a 20% increase in the number of youth needing our care annually. Today, we see over 2,200 youth who are kicked out of their homes or are fleeing their homes because of their identities. Tonight, we honor this important work and invite you to make a place at the table for our LGBTQ plus youth.